Yeah.
Well, there's teachers before that, there's Jeanette.
And Selma, Middleton, Selma Reed Bloom, did she stay there too? Selma Reed Bloom?
No, because she taught John's Creek. Her and her sister came from, her niece came from somewhere else. No, Sarah Reed never taught it there.
Oh, okay.
They came, her and Bernice came from eastern part of the state, and I don't know where they stayed. And Bernice married George Brown, he was her student, and Sarah Reed married Ricky Middleton.
We're talking about sleeping. One time, Bama, who was staying there with you that night, Bama, when you thought somebody was coming in and you were sleeping upstairs? Was it you and Barbara?
Genesis.
You and Genesis. So
Barbara, all three of us.
I always smothered to death up there. I never could get my breath.
We was always sleeping up there. We heard the office noise and it sounded like somebody, they just fastened on the screen door. And it sounded like somebody was turning the screen door off. And then we come flying down them steps of hollering. And Grandpa got up, got long and underwear, slept all year round. He ran that porch he went and couldn't find nobody. We went back, went to sleep, and after we heard it again, we thought, well, he's down. We were scared him off. Got down on the steps and Grandpa's snoring. I've never heard such
Now, he could always I told him to push the wall out and put it back. Eddie, is that you?
somebody else, huh? Okay, we'll pick up where we left off. We've had a delicious lunch and Betty came to eat with us, and now it's back to story time and reminiscing.
We also got our shirt.
Oh, and we got our shirts, and we're now the official Snoop Sisters. And it all began at the Jackson County Courthouse, and that's Vema's old stomping ground. Mine too, I worked there for a little while. And that's where Naomi did a lot of her snooping to find out where we came from. So we really came from Moses Creek up Caney Fork, in Jackson County, town of Silva, state of North Carolina.
Moses Creek.
Moses far Creek. Back we had Hoot House for
chickens, and didn't get the Grand Ole Opry till Sunday morning, but my, what fun we had.
Well, they drug daylight in on a sled.
Oh. Time out for a laugh. I remember one time being up at Uncle Teek and Aunt Lily Stevens. They were Stevens' working. And our cousin Huey was up there. And we were having to cut the tops out of the trees because Aunt Lily wore one of these little dust caps that's kind of scalloped around the edges, looked like a pie tin. And she sat in this chair. They always told me she was hippoed, and I wondered what kind of disease that was, but she wanted to watch the road and see the cars go by. There probably at least one a week passed. And Huey and it was still a little cool, so she had a fire in the fireplace, and we were sitting there, and she was telling us stories and talking, and I think Mother was in the kitchen helping get some lunch ready, and Huey had some firecrackers in his pocket that the fuses had come out of. Probably picked them up, duds. And we didn't know what he was doing, so he slipped some of those out and threw them in the fire, and you never saw so much ashes and heard such a boom. And Aunt Lily said, hurry, they're shooting at us, hurry, get out of here, they're shooting at us. Huey never did tell it, and I didn't either, but he put all those firecrackers in the ashes and that blowed us away in there.
She wore shin plasters, what they call shin plasters, because she sits close to that fireplace that her shins got pied. So she put like pasteboard, little thin pasteboard or paper down between her stockings and her legs to keep her legs from burning. Instead of scooting back or getting up once in a while, she wore what they call shin plasters to keep her legs from getting sore.
All right. I'm going to tell mine about Grandma. I drew Grandma's name out of the folder, and that's what I'm supposed to talk about. So I remember one time we were at her house, and she always churned out on the back porch where it was cool. And the old porch wasn't in too good a shape, and she had just a straight chair, and so she sat down out there and was churning. And all at once, that one leg of her chair went through the floor. Well, you talk about a situation we had it. Here she was about half on the floor, half in the chair, and she only weighed about 300 pound. Would you agree to that?
About 275 anyway.
And here, Rita Mae Gunner was there helping her that summer, and she and I were trying to get her up, and you never saw such a mess. Finally, she says, "Good glory, children. Just get down to the barn and get your grandpa. Fetch your grandpa. He'll come and get me up." But she didn't spill the milk. She got the butter churned. That same thing happened with Clairlou and I. She was cutting a chicken up for lunch, and she said, "Go get Leondi. Go get Leondi." She shook just like Jello when she hit the ground, when she hit the floor. But we finally got her up. But when we got through laughing, we kept working till we got her up. That was the funny things.
Well, I've got Grandpa. Well, in my eyes as a little girl, Grandpa was something of a giant, a saint. Because I worshipped my Grandpa Hooper. He'd always save me the black licorice out of the candy. Of course, I loved it, and he did too. The rest of them wouldn't eat it, and we was glad. And he would take me wherever he went to work, I'd follow him. And he'd go to the old orchard to cut briars and stalks. But he'd say, "We have to have us just a little bit of something to eat before we go." Well, to the smokehouse we'd go. And he'd get the hams, the good, rich part of the ham, cut it out. And we'd take it and we'd eat it raw. And Grandma would quarrel at us. She'd say, "The 2 rats has been back in my ham." And that's what we would do. And had him an old bucket. And he'd make him coffee over, and I'd help him cut stalks, and briars. But he was a man to look up to, Grandpa was. He was a good Christian man. But he'd say, "God Almighty," to about everything he said. I don't think he meant anything derogatory, but he just had fun. I mean,
That was his byword.
that was his byword. But if he could get on his good clean clothes and head towards Silvytown, he was happy. He liked to go to Silvytown. That's what he called it, Silvytown. He never did say Silver. Say Silvytown. And one time after the war, while they was going to take him, Grandma would have rode anything, I guess, that would have moved. But Grandpa was kind of backwards. But the Power and Light boy took him on the Jeep. He wanted to ride him around on Jeep, and he's taking him up to Uncle Teek's. And so instead of going up the road, he turned around and went up through the pasture to show him what the Jeep would do. And Grandpa held on with all power. And when he got through, he says, "God Almighty, get me out of this thing." Grandpa wasn't an adventurer like Grandma was. But you needn't ever ask him on Sunday what he's going to do on Monday, because he'd tell you that he'd tell you when Monday come. He didn't plan his days ahead of time. He was that much
a wise man.
wise man. Yeah, he didn't. And he'd get in the choir, or get to singing at church, and he'd sing way louder than anybody else. And poor old thing never did have a tune. He never did get the tune of a song.
That's what I don't know.
And me too. But he'd sing on Jordan, Stormy Banks, I Stand. He'd be way louder than everybody else.
But he
loved the Lord.
loved the Lord, and he sang
And he sang to, yeah,
His glory.
and we loved him. Okay, go ahead. That's all right, I'll tell something else.
Well, mine's a funny story, and I'll tell about what I done to Claude one time.
Oh, Lord.
That was our cousin Hugh's brother, and we'd been hoeing corn around at the top of the hill, and we got so long off for dinner, we'd go eat dinner. And so when they got down there in the Jeff field, I don't know if we brought our dinner or what, but they was playing, and they was catching crawdads, spring lizards and stuff there, and that old branch came down through there, and Thomas and Otto and Claude and all of them was up there, and so I was right in the middle of them, and that Claude put a crawfish or a spring lizard down my neck. And I pitched a big fit and rolled around there and hollered and screamed, and of course I reckon it come out. I don't remember, it maybe didn't stay in there. But anyway, we went back. Grandpa knew what happened because he come to see what's the matter. He thought they was killing me. So we was back up our hoeing corn, and Claude and them never did work. So they had all evening, all day free, and we had to go back after we played the branch ball and finish hoeing corn. We saw at the top of the hill on that bank, and I saw Claude coming, And I was getting ready for him. Oh, I was mad at him. And I had me a rock. I picked it up and watched for him to come. And I got right down behind that big old tree on the top of the hill. And just as he come, I cut down on him and hit him right in the back of the neck. And he just flopped down like a wet dish rag. And Daddy saw what was going on. And he come down there. He had a hickory that would have cut me all to pieces. And Grandpa was behind, crawled out and where they was going. And he said, nope, Tom, leave her alone, leave her alone. Said, I saw what he done to her around there. Said, she just getting even with him. And so Grandpa kept Daddy from whipping me. But Claude was laying there. I mean, he actually fell to the ground. I can't remember if he's knocked out or
You
what.
poleaxed him, and you?
Well, I threw it off of that bank and hit him right in the back of the neck. Because I'd had a rat put down my neck, now I had a spring loser. I was lucky to live with all the boys. I had no girls in the family.
your
It was
age,
my
Well, I didn't either, except Barbara, but,
Didn't get to play with her that
well,
much.
she kept me running crazy all the time. She's afraid of everybody and everything. Eat buckeyes and everything else.
Well, I drew Daddy out of there, and I can't remember a whole lot. Daddy wasn't at home a whole lot when I was little.
And he wasn't funny then.
No, because I got one spanking from him, and that's all I needed was one, and that was because Velma and Otto were fighting, and I told them they were going to get a whipping. They better quit. When Daddy got in the house, he'd whip them. And so I got between them and thought I would stop them, and one of them bloodied my nose. So Daddy came in and got us all three.
So you all three got a
So that's the only whipping Daddy ever gave me. But the really good time I remember with him was after we went to the state of Washington. We got out there in about August or September, and I was out of high school and I couldn't get a job, and so it was just before deer hunting season. They were going to have a special 3-day doe hunt at the end of the regular season, and so he took me out and taught me to shoot the 30-06. We'd go to the dump and shoot cans, and he said, told me I was really good, and he said, if you get a deer, I'll buy you a lady's size 30-06. Well, I just knew I'd had the 30-06, you know, so we go camping with Marie and Dewey and Larry. Their son was about 11, and so we take their truck and we camped and went to this meadow and camped the night before the doe hunt was to start the next day. And got up the next morning. That's the first time I ever drank coffee in my life, and I thought it was terrible, but they boiled it over an open fire and threw the grounds in, and Daddy said, drink some, it'll get you warm. Well, it did, and of course before we left home, he took all that old red material for NK. He made me sew it all around my hat and all over my jacket, and made me a red shirt. Mother made me a red shirt out of it, and everything so they'd see me. Well, I didn't think, you know, I'd have any trouble, anybody would have any trouble seeing me till that morning when the shooting started, and it was like a roar. I had never heard anything like that in my life as soon as daybreak came. Well, we couldn't find a doe, so we took off. Well, the agreement was that whoever got them first would shoot for all 5 of us. All 5 of us had tags. And so Dewey, Marie, and Larry went one way, and we went the other way. And we'd walked above the timberline. There was nothing but sagebrush and like broom sage, I guess it was. And it was a real steep hill. And as we went around that hill, there was a whole herd of them, all does, and young deer. And so Daddy drew back and he shot, and I said, Daddy, let me shoot one. Daddy, let me shoot one. And he's just a-shooting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm screaming all the time, Daddy, I want to shoot one. And he shot. The 4 fell, and the 5th one didn't fall. So Dewey, Marie, and Larry were quite close, and they heard the shooting. So they came. Dewey started hollering Tom, and of course Daddy hollered back, and so they came, and Daddy said, they just went around the hill, Dewey. You can get yours. I've got 4 down. You can get yours. So Dewey goes around. He actually shoots the deer that Daddy had shot. When they cleaned it, it had its liver and whatnot was torn up, and he had shot it in Dewey shot it in the neck, but Daddy had hit it somewhere in the liver. But it was so steep, they had to tie them to bushes to gut them. That's how steep it was.
They great, didn't they?
And so then we started out, and Larry was carrying the 2 guns, and I was carrying 2 guns, but Daddy made me carry the livers. He put them in a white sack, and he made me carry the livers, and a gun on each shoulder, and then just dared me to fall down and, you know, ruin the gun.
Bruise them.
But we made it
down to the foot of the hill, and Dee said, Tom, we can't get those 5 deer out of here. There's no way we can make it today. So we go back to camp and find these 2 guys with 2 horses. And we hired them to go back and haul them out after they'd gutted them all out. And went back home, you know. And I said, Daddy, where's my gun? When do I get my gun? He just grinned at me. He never did buy me a...
But you didn't get one.
Well, I said,
you got it for you.
Yeah, but he said, I said, you know good and well I would have shot that deer, that I'd have killed it if you'd let me have that gun.
Well,
He
sure
said,
you would.
yeah, you would have.
He called us and told us you got a deer, you know. We always thought you
Yeah.
could kill one till you told us.
She got a duck.
Yeah, I killed a duck.
Killed a duck.
Yeah, we'd go
I
duck
got a
hunting, and I got a
pheasant
duck
one
one
day,
day.
and boy, that is a something. You can't hardly kill those things.
Okay, since you started with Dad, I don't remember this, but I remember them telling it that he walked in his sleep. And at one time that he got out of bed, went down to the barn, went in the stall, and you had to step up into the stall where the horse was kept, and saddle it, and started to ride it out, and hit his head over the door frame and knocked himself out. Do you remember hearing that?
Mm-hmm.
Mother said
him.
it woke him up.
That's before they was married, though.
Was it?
Yeah, he is at
It
home
was
as
at
a
It was
boy.
at Grandma's, and Grandpa heard the horse up.
Oh, okay.
Went down there and got him.
Well, so that he was a sleepwalker. And I guess the other thing I remember is when he told me that time he ran away from home to join the circus. And I always wanted to be in the circus, and that's when Charlie Campbell taught me how to do the acrobat part, to step on his leg and on up onto his shoulders, and I could stand up and balance there. And I thought, oh, I'll go join the circus, and Daddy will be so proud of me because he wanted to join when he was younger.
He just wanted away from home. Dad
So I didn't get to join the circus. Okay, maybe your turn for Dad. We'll just continue whoever we have here.
Well, I don't know that there's anything much funny I can tell about Dad.
You get a new name.
This is your new one right here.
Old childhood experience.
As far back as you can remember. Maybe tell that one about when you lived in Ohio.
One time when we lived in Ohio, Mother had gone to town, and she just had Thomas, and she had him in one arm and the groceries in the other. And of course little Chris was walking with her up the street. And they were working on the sidewalk just a block or two from our house, and you had to step off of the sidewalk and detour around into the street and go home. And Mother went on, and when she got to the house, she missed me. And she went back to hunt me. She put up the groceries. And I was sitting up on the fence telling them men how to work on the street. I was pointing my finger right at them, telling them just exactly how to do it. And she laughed till she like to die. She said, at me, she said she's scared so bad because of the danger I could have been in, but still, and anyway, I didn't see no danger in it myself, you know, it wasn't much. And then our next door neighbor down the block, about 3 houses, was a black family. And they grew their own grapes and made their own wine. And when they'd make a new batch, they'd give me a sample. And I'd sneak out the back door and go around behind the house and go down there and get a sample. And one day I almost got drunk. I drunk so much of it. And I went home, and I don't know what I said to Mother, but whatever it was, it didn't come out right. I got my behind paddled. And old Miss McIntosh says, don't whip that young'un, whip them girls out there. They're the ones give it to her. Says, don't whip that young'un. You know, they had $2.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess I was a little Chris. I don't know. I don't remember. Or I thought I was anyway.
And then tell about the time with the money. And Uncle Huff and them were there.
Oh, well, Uncle Huff and them had always dropped their change on, they were young blades going to court. And they'd take their change out of their pockets on payday and lay it on the table and put it, Dad got it and put it in my name, in the bank in my name, you know. And, but there was a shortage in the light wire. And Mother made my dresses, and she'd fix me this one that day, and it was an awful pretty little dress, and And I'd climb up in the chair and turn those lights on. And so that day Uncle Huff says, climb up there, Mamie, and turn that light on. Well, when I did, it shocked me and I fell out of the chair. And I got up and I wiped my dress off with everything, just cussed him out. Mother was peeping. They taught me to say these words.
And you didn't know what you were saying?
No. Mother said she thought about whipping me, and she said, no, I'm not going to whip that child. They've done it. Well, Uncle Huff said he never taught another child in all of his life, his own or anybody else's grandchildren, to say a bad word. He said, that learned him. He said, I never got a cussing like that from a man. So, Mama said she was tickled in a way and hurt too that she couldn't whip me because she knew that's blame because we had 4 boarders.
And they knew they were to
They
blame
knew
too.
they were blame, yeah. And
So that's your childhood experience.
one of them.
One of many.
Well, I got Mother's name, and I guess what all of us remember about Mother the most is her prayer life, because it really meant something and still does today. And she always found a place to pray, and the washing the dishes or the making the bed didn't matter. She went to pray. So she had a place up above the house up in the holler up there. And like always, she left us children down there, I guess, to clean up the dishes and everything. And we didn't dare disturb her, because even my Sandy says till today, she just felt like she's on holy ground, that she would sit and hire little walks or do something real quiet while Mama prayed when she'd take her tour with her down below the house there. But anyway, we was down at the house, and all them mean brothers and sisters I had kept me tore up. Got to fighting. And I wasn't doing a thing. I was a perfect 10. And they hit me. I got hit right in the middle of them, like Naomi did. And I went up that hill, and I can remember just a screaming and a crying at the top of my voice. And I could hear Mama praying, but that didn't make no difference. And she got up, scared to death. What happened? What happened? And I can remember telling her, I said, Mama, they got in a fight down there, but they hit the wrong fella. Interrupted her prayer to tell them that they hit the wrong fella. And I'm not sure, but she might have hit the right fella. But Naomi was saying Daddy whipped us, but he must have not got me that day, because he only gave me one whipping in my life. And we were out playing hidey hoop, we called it. And I had a shoe sole that was just flopping. And you know, if you didn't get them tacked on, they would break back. And Daddy come out on the front porch and had the iron last and his hammer and his tacks and all. He said, Sis, come here and let me fix that shoe. And I said, what'll I hide? He said, I said for you to come here. I said, I've got to hide this time, Daddy. Well, so I went around the side of the house to hide. And I was going to slip, the base was on the other side of the steps, and I was going to slip back around. Well, he just walked down the steps and waiting on me and had a piece of that old yellow bell bush. And I didn't wait no longer to have sew my shoe, and I wished he could have sewn my bottom my legs. But now that's the only whipping he gave me, so he must have not hit me.
Well, he must have thought I was the cause of it, because I got it.
I might have run his.
Yeah.
He whipped me one time, that was enough.
Well,
that's me too.
You never did get one.
And I never did get one from, but I have carried in many a switch, and he'd prop it up in the corner and go right back to his Western book, and we'd start playing and get louder and louder. And he'd threaten us, but he never did whip me.
Sometimes he whipped me, and I was running the shoe.
Well, I drew a brother out this time. So I guess I'll tell about Thomas and the bullfrogs.
That's a good one.
Well, first I'll tell about what he used to do. He was supposed to be carrying in the fodder when it was ready in the field, and we had to carry it to the barn loft. And he was supposed to be carrying in the fodder, and he told Lois and me that if we carried it, he'd give us a penny a bundle. Well, we'd be covered. We'd look like a walking haystack.
Yeah, 5 or 6.
Going, I mean, you know, just grab it up, it'd be all over our heads, and we could just barely see out. And I remember that night we carried till it was so dark we could hardly see to carry. We never got a penny. He didn't pay us.
I'd send him
So
a
He
bill.
didn't have any money.
So then he told us I guess that's when he was in the Navy the first time he came home. He said he loved, we told him that was after the flood when we had the tadpole pond, which was our life, where we spent all of our spare time.
And I know it.
And so he told us that, we told him there were bullfrogs down there. And he said, well, if they puff up when they holler, they're bullfrogs. And we said, well, they do. And so he told us, he said, well, I'll give you a nickel, wasn't it, for every bullfrog you bring. So So we take us I guess it's half a gallon jar we took down there, and we sat there, and every time one would holler, we'd go run for it and grab it. We'd wade through the pond or run around, whatever. As soon as we saw it puff up, we wouldn't let it get out of our sight. We had that jar full of frogs when we went home. We just knew we were going to be rich. He didn't give us a dime. He said, those aren't bullfrogs.
Caught the wrong kind.
So we had to go throw them away, and we didn't get a thing. We'd spend half a day catching a jar full of what we thought were bullfrogs, and he wouldn't buy them.
Kept you occupied, though, didn't it?
He had eaten bullfrog legs somewhere.
Oh, he did. Him and Otto used to come in. I'd fry them for them. They'd bounce and jump and pop out of the pan.
Oh, my.
Yeah, they did. Where they from? Yeah.
Well, we still haven't found the right ones now. Well, I drew neighbors. And I guess the good thing I remember was Emmy Gunter, and I just barely can remember her, came to visit us one time, and she had an apron on and had a little tiny knife in the pocket. And it must have been in the fall of the year, and either we had the apples or she brought them to us, and she sat there and peeled apples for us, and I thought that was the neatest lady I'd ever seen. And then the next time I heard anything about her, she had died. So I just barely can remember her. But I remember something on Mamie's sister-in-law, Vernie.
Oh, boy.
She had an aluminum, I can't even say it. Aluminum mailbox. And that was during the war, when every time we would find a can lid, we'd break the glass out of it or get any type of metal that we could sell for scrap and get a payday. Well, Thomas and Otto had them a little scrap pile, and somehow that mailbox was all beat up or something, or she'd lost it, somebody had taken it, and boy, she came around to our house and she was just laying it off. I want my aluminum mailbox back now. Those boys got it and I want it back. And she was just letting us have it with both barrels, and I don't remember if she ever got her mailbox back or not.
But y'all didn't have it, did you?
No, we hadn't gotten it. And then Frank came over one time, her husband, and he kind of liked to drink.
And
he told my mother, he said, Dolly, he said, you need to go see about Vernie. He said, no, she's bad off sick. And he said, they're putting hot towels to her now. Said she's just real bad. I'd like for you to go see her. Of course, Mother was real concerned and cared for the neighbors, so she just got ready and went over there. And when she went over there, he took our shoe polish, all the shoe polish we had,
and drunk it,
and strained it through bread. They said and drank it, but he wanted Mother to get out of the house so he could get that. But he also, I think, told a story on Mother for Vernie to get out of the house till he could find his liquor over there. And I think I got that backwards. He told Vernie that Dolly was sick and they were putting hot towels to her. He wanted Vernie to get out of the house so he could get his whiskey shit in. So that's the neighbors I remember.
Has told about the killing the wrong rooster when we eat the wrong chicken.
Okay, it's coming around.
But let me tell this one on Mamie and George. Lois and I were just little when I was 7 when you got married, and Lois was almost 5. And so they kept telling us that Mamie and George was courting. Well, we didn't know what a courting was, and nobody would tell us.
I didn't either.
So he'd come a-courting, and he'd come in, and we had an upper room that was, nobody slept in unless we had to. But she had a trunk and a rocking chair, and Mamie would sit on the trunk, and George would sit in the rocking chair till he could talk her into sitting on his lap.
Yeah.
And so they went in there one day, and Lois and I decided we'd find out what courting was. We'd see what courting was. So we go in there and we crawl up on the truck beside Mamie, and we're sitting there swinging our feet, and he can't get rid of us. So he finally pulled out gum and gave it to us. And if we'd leave the room.
Oh, he'd ever buy.
So we did. But we still didn't know what courting was, but we went in there so much to try to find out that I got to where I was hating him, because he'd look at me and he'd say, "Know me, do you? Know me, do you?" That's what he'd call me. And that'd make me so mad I could scream. But she got married and we still didn't know what courting was, did we?
We thought we had it figured out because we looked around the door one time, she was sitting on his lap.
Yeah.
But we figured that must be what courting is.
And you've been married how many years now, and you still don't know what courting is?
We never got courted properly, I don't think.
We're going back to I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Going back to Frank and Vernie, one time Real Holcomb married Uncle Hick's girl, Charlotte. Got to making elderberry wine. And of course that was against the law, but Real didn't care. He gathered all these elderberries and made the wine. Well, the day come for him to strain it. And on Moses Creek with us kids strung out from the mouth of the creek to the head, I don't know how every child on Moses Creek wound up at Real Holcomb's that day. But we all sometime or other come by there, and he gave every one of us a little glass. Well, it made us
Sick.
no, it didn't make us sick. It made us drunk and dizzy. And then Frank, maybe he come by and got himself a big dose. And Real like got killed. The parents of all of us kids was about to kill him. And then they got to bring in Frank with it. Seeing Frank got him into giving it to us. It was Real. He was just full of fun. But I well remember that elderberry wine. Mama was mad she could scream because
She was so against it.
yeah, well, me and Thomas, I think, both got a big dose of it that day, so.
The rooster. Yeah, we had black chickens, and they're solid black. The old roosters and all. Boy, Daddy would order those things when they'd come. So we had an old red neck. The one had an old streaky neck. It was all black, but that Daddy told Thomas and I, he said that wasn't a good thoroughbred rooster. So he wanted rid of that, said we'd just have chicken for dinner the next day for them to go ahead and kill it. And he went to Eastern Quarter somewhere, and I don't think Mama was at home either. So they're real proud they can get to shoot the gun, you know. So they go out, and that's before Thomas shot the gun that had the dirt bobbers nest in it, and the old barrel split. Curl back on him, scared him.
Then we had a short off,
Then we
sawed
had
off
a
22.
sawed-off 22, but I don't think it's a sawed-off. But anyway, him and I took out the 22, and they got out to kill the rooster. And so they killed the rooster and brought it on down there at the house. And us girls, it's going to help pick it and stall it. Didn't know what was going on, but they laid it down there. Thomas, they hid it, I think. They said, we've got to catch the rooster. We've got to catch the rooster. And we wasn't sure what they'd done, you know. So we was all up there, can you remember, up around where Mama washed and trying to hem it in onto them old bushes and everything?
Mm-hmm.
Well, sure enough, there was the rooster with a striped neck. We didn't know they'd done killed the wrong one, you know. So we was trying to catch that old rooster. So we caught it, and then we thought they were going to just cut its head off if they couldn't kill it. They went in the house and got the bottle of black shoe polish and held it down and polished its neck, and then told us they'd shot the wrong rooster. They'd shot the black neck one, and they
It was full of blood.
knew Daddy'd whip them. And they sat down and helped that old rooster out there and took that old gripping shoe polish that had a little wire and a
Belly
top,
bobber.
and down its neck. They brushed and they brushed. Of course, it stayed black neck till it rained. And then we done eat the other one. It's too late to do anything about it. But I can't remember what Daddy said. Can you?
He didn't exactly say. It looks so funny.
Well, he didn't know it till later when it
He
rained
didn't know
it
until it
off.
rained, but he looked at it and he looked. I think he tried to figure it out. It took him some time to ever get it figured out, I think.
Well, that's covering up your mistakes,
I
isn't
know
it?
it was shoe polish.
I'll tell you when you're going to be in trouble.
Wonderful.
Any way you can get out of it or think up a way to get out
It'd
of
be
it.
nice if you could black them all, wouldn't it?
You can under the blood.
We're talking about Mother going to pray. I remember that I got to go with her one time, and if I would be real quiet, and I shared this at a WMU prayer retreat one time, that I guess Mother took me on the first prayer retreat that I ever went on. And I was probably about 4 years old, and that I can just see that big old stump of that tree where it had fallen. And of course, right around the base of it, it was real sandy. And old Patchtown weeds that had died were there, and I had me a little pile of those piled up like a little pile of logs. And I knew to be quiet. I knew she was talking to somebody. And I guess there, I could feel the presence of God. You could feel, even as a child. And I'd make a little stick garden.
I did too.
Or little, or a cemetery. That'd be the cemetery, whatever. But it was a privilege and a treat to get to go to pray with her. And I just wonder how many children ever got that opportunity or ever had that.
Well, Betty said she counted all them little stones there on that pine.
Betty and
Silver.
Sandy got to go with her.
When I was at Moses Creek Church the last time, Dillard Moore preached from Revelation, but he was preaching on wrong, weak pastors and wrong motives and things like this. And he said, there's been people, back in the first days of this church, in the early days of this church, how they shouted and everything. And he said, I don't know if he knew who I was or if anything about that. But anyway, he went on preaching and he said, like ate Dolly Hooper. And he said, Jack Gunner told me one time, said he used to go after the cows, and he said he could just hear Dolly Hooper praying. He said, that's why I'm a Christian today.
He told me that when he was saved.
Well, Frank
He
said
still
that-
could hear Mother's prayers up on that hillside.
Frank said that he was up there working in that new ground, the new ground that Frank cleared. Maybe you don't remember it. Right in behind Susie's and Frank's, way up in there, he cleared a big old new ground up there. He said he used to sit up there and hear her. Or he couldn't understand what she was saying, but he could hear her pray.
Well, speaking of Mother, when the other day we were doing the yard, and I had on those old pants that you wear up there, and that old jacket, and those old blue boots, and we're just working away, and that boy Inslee came to harrow the garden, and Martin was up there loading the hay, and so I went up there to help Neil get the sticks out of that garden before he went through it, and so I was just working away, and Martin says to Neil, said, why don't you take Naomi down to that hospital place and buy her some clothes? I said, you mean I look like Dolly Hooper? And he said, yes, you do. I said, yeah, she put on the oldest men's stuff she could find when she worked outside.
Well,
He said, why don't you take her down there and buy her some clothes?
The nearest embarrassed to death I ever was, and the maddest I ever got, in a way, and it shouldn't have been. I went to county home to prayer meeting one Sunday evening, and I had to leave early for some reason, and Mother made this song, and she sung it. None of us have a copy of it. God must not have intended us to keep it. And so I was coming on back, and this little old lady was walking along, and I decided, well, I'd pick her up. She looked pitiful, and it was Donnie Franklin. We was riding along, and I brought her down there to where the road forks at the red light so she could go back up in East Silva. And I said something to her about how'd she enjoy the prayer meeting, and she said it would have been fine if that little old Hooper woman hadn't got up there and sung. Well, you can imagine how I felt. I thought about not saying nothing. I said, Donnie, that was my mother. And she acted like it embarrassed her in a way, and then in a way she didn't know. I don't reckon her care. She just got out and went on. And that's kind of a funny feeling when somebody said that
About your mother.
about your mother.
Well, Bama says she has that song, she thinks, and she's going to make us a copy of it.
Well, I didn't know she still had it.
Well, I don't know that was it.
Well, I would, not much.
Well, this has been a real neat day, going back and reminiscing on Mamie's birthday, and we also are celebrating Bama's, and Betty came and had lunch with us. And of course, we celebrated mine the 4th of March, and we're still celebrating the whole month.
Indeed.
The 4 of us went to Nashville last week, and we thought sure that we would get to record, but they didn't realize what they had there. So we came back home, and now we're going to end this today on Mamie's birthday, recording the song that we practiced on the way down and on the way back. So it's called Where Could I Go But to the Lord. Okay, let's see. Are you in fine tune? You got the pitch, Fema?
I'll get it.
Okay. Who's going to start it?
Let her start it.
I'm alto.
Living below in this so sinful world, hardly a comfort can afford. Striving alone to face temptation sore, where could I go but to the Lord? Where could I go? Oh, where could I go? See Where could I go but to the Lord? Neighbors are kind, I love them everyone. We get along in sweet accord. But when my soul needs manna from above, where could I go but to the Lord? Where could I go? Oh, where could I go? Seeking a refuge for my soul, needing a friend to save me in the end. Where could I go but to the Lord? And now we'll close out this session with our two honorees, Mamie Virginia Raby, 74 years old today, 74 years young, and Sister Velma, who will be 66 a week from today, next Wednesday. Velma Lou Clemens.
Thank you, sister. It's wonderful to live to be 74 years old. I never thought I'd make it, but I don't know why people talks about getting old. I don't feel old. I don't act old, and I sure don't look old.
That's right.
So I don't know what Velma's going to say, but that's my opinion on the matter.
So long, goodbye. Get these back to the wagon. These shoes are killing me.